I've got a lot of grandbabies, like a lot. And when it comes to finding a gift for each of them, it could add up. But this year, while I was making my way through Walmart, I realized I don't have to spend a lot to get the gifts they'll love.
An OPI mini mani set! I'm gonna do so much nail art.
Oh, yeah! A Lego set! Might own a Walla water bottle!
Ooh, and that's just half of them.
Shop great gifts they're sure to love for $25 and under at Walmart.
Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No, don't. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
All right. Welcome back. Fit Nation. If you are a veteran and you are struggling or feel like you are leading towards a path of darkness, stop and think about those who are around you. Think about how they truly value you, how they will miss you. You are not alone. You need to talk to someone. Someone will listen to you. If you feel like you're a burden to someone or you're embarrassed to talk to your friends or family, call the anonymous hotline at 1-800-273-8255 and take option 1. Do not make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you're a new listener, thanks for joining us. Please subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast apps, to include the Military Broadcast Radio app, and check out our family of shows. They're all hosted by veterans. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel at _Misfit Nation. Subscribe and click the bell. This will keep you up to date with our latest news, episodes, and of course the stories of our guests. Speaking of which, our next guest is a human Swiss Army knife, an ultramarathoner, a special needs parent, a former Intel officer, international martial arts champion, personal Kaizen expert, and author of the Amazon Kindle #1 new release, Everyday Excellence. So without further ado, let's welcome Joe Templin to the Misfit Nation. Welcome, Joe.
Rich, I am glad to be on the island of Misfit Toys.
Awesome. Thank you. And that's how we got our name. It's great to have you here. In the pre-show, we were talking about our love of baseball, and you have one side of the aisle, I'm on the other. So you're a Bronx Bomber, I'm a Metropolitan. We'll keep that at bay during this, but hey,
you know what? At least you're not a Red Sox fan, all right?
Definitely not.
But you know what?
It's all good right here. My boss at work is a Boston Red Sox fan. I have to hear about him all the time.
I don't think they're talking much right now about it.
He talks a lot to the TV now, not to me. So that helps me out. I laugh and I walk away. Well, anyway, Joe, if you don't mind, tell us, the Misfit Nation, a little bit about your backstory and how you got started and where we are today.
So my backstory was my dad's former Army. My mom was a former nun. There's 6 kids in my family, so you could just figure it out from there. I grew up in rural upstate New York, farm town. I was severely asthmatic. At 10 years old, I was legally dead from my asthma, like, floating up, seeing the bright lights and everything, came on back. So that is part of the reason why I'm like how I am. I am completely driven. I use all 86,400 seconds every single day in every possible way. I started college at 13 because my parents said 12 was too young to start college. I studied applied physics. I worked for DARPA. I, in fact, helped develop the background in the entire US telecommunications system and a bunch of other stuff that I'm not allowed to talk about still. Then I went into finance, built a financial planning career. Along the way, I also picked up Taekwondo, ended up winning an international championship down the road because the asthma is never allowed to serve the country in uniform. But I ended up doing some time in Intel, around the bend for a while. Then started running, became an ultra marathoner. No, I am not David Goggins in any way, shape, or form. I'm more like a broken, shuffling pirate. And through business and Taekwondo and all the other stuff, developed a love for psychology. One of my closest friends is Royal Dutch Marines counterterrorism officer. So he and I have some really interesting conversations. And all that ultimately led me to trying to make people better through my consulting work. And ultimately, that's where the book, Everyday Excellence, came about as a mechanism to try and reach even more individuals. So that's a little bit of my backstory.
It's a pretty good backstory. I mean, you had asthma that nearly killed you, but you're an ultra marathoner now. So it's a big jump. So I mean, it's awesome. It's a lot of running, but ultra is only 26.3 miles. So it could be a 26.3 and beyond. I'm sure you've gone up to 100s or whatever by now.
My first one actually was a double marathon because I swore I would never run a marathon again. And so 2 negatives make a positive. So that's why I did a double marathon the first time. I was actually training for a 125 kilometer a couple months ago, and I broke my leg, so I'm recovering, which is the reason why I'm not away at a Ragnar this weekend. Ragnars are 200-ish team, 200-ish mile team relay races. So.
And Ragnar, do you have them across, like sometimes they go straight across the state or something like that?
Yep. So this weekend would be Cape Cod, and so you run all the way across.
Yeah. So decorate your van and have fun with your.
That's right. Put on my running kilt, and, dress up like a pirate, and when we're done, drink way too much beer.
There is not a too much beer.
It is refueling. It's liquid bread.
It's carbohydrates. People need to understand that it helps everything work out. It's made with water. It hydrates you. So talk to us about your everyday excellence. Tell us about the book and how you decided, hey, I'm going to write a book and help this out, help others through my writing.
So everyday excellence is really a multivitamin for life, because all of us have multiple components, various dimensions of our life. We have our physical health. We have our mental health. We have our spiritual health. We have our relationships. We have our occupation. We've got all these different components, and people often let different parts of their life slip, whether they're going through stress, going through depression, they're just so busy with work or with kids, what have you. So what ends up happening is we get off of the growth mindset that we have as children. You look at a little kid learning to walk, they're going to learn to walk no matter what. And then they're going to start, climbing stuff and pushing things around and getting up and getting into the cookie jar because they want it. And by the time we are big people, 60+% of us have forgotten that stick to it mentality, that growth focus of learning whatever we can. And so everyday excellence was designed to be a tool to help bring that back about in individuals, because all too often people in their 20s or 30s or 40s end up starting a premature retrogression, a decline, when they should in actuality still be green and growing and continuing to evolve into our 50s, 60s, and even into our 70s. So the book came about because I was downstairs in my weight room listening to some Black Sabbath and some Jocko Willink, tossing around my kettlebells and everything. And Jocko made a comment about excellence. I'm like, oh, excellence is a habit. Habits need to be practiced every single day. And all of a sudden I had that lightning bolt moment of everyday excellence, put down the kettlebell, came on up, brain dumped for about 10 minutes on the structure of the book and what I wanted to do, then went back downstairs and finished my workout. And then I started really researching and writing the book. And the structure of it is very different from a lot of the other everyday readers, in that every day starts with a quote from somebody. Could be Jocko Willink, could be Mahatma Gandhi, could be Muhammad Ali, could be Dr. Seuss. And then there's a discussion around it. And that discussion is very much like the Oracle of Delphi in some ways, in that the reader is going to take what they need, what they're looking for from that day. But the biggest difference is that almost every other daily reading type of book that I've come across, you just read stuff and then there's no guidance. Motivation comes about from action. And so every day there is an actual action item in the book to take what we discussed and bring it to fruition. And that is how people start changing their mindsets and behaviors. So, Rich, for example, what's your birthday?
November 24th.
November 24th. Okay.
It's like Thanksgiving.
So, November 24th. The quote is, "We're learning things every decade we grow through, and ultimately you do end up with a very different way of looking at things." Florence Pugh. And here's part of the discussion. Think about the you of 10 years ago. You probably look back and say, I was such an idiot. If I only knew then what I knew now. A decade from now, you'll say the same thing. That's called growth. That goes on, has all sorts of discussion and all that. And the action item is, look back at the you of a decade ago. What has changed with your family, with your job? Now look forward 10 years from now and ask yourself who you need to become to have that person come into being.
Pretty deep. 10 years ago, I was on a mountain in Afghanistan, so it's good. And here I am now in Tennessee, so it's good.
So the big question is, where are you going to be 10 years from now?
Hopefully fully retired.
Okay.
And relaxing.
And what does the 10-year from now Rich have to tell today Rich to make sure that that vision of being fully retired comes to fruition?
Pushing forward. Keep pushing for the light. Chase your goals.
Okay. So even in the rain and the wind, keep moving forward.
Exactly. It's the same thing that you have to do when you're doing your ultras. I'm sure you have to play mind tricks on yourself doing an ultra and play that psychological game as you get into the mile 50. And you're like, why did I sign up for this?
Oh God, yeah. So like on my first one, I got to mile 40 and I had nothing left, physically, emotionally, or whatever. And one of my friends called me and she was having all sorts of problems. So the last bit of reserves that I had been saving, I expended on her, trying to help her solve her problem, talk her down. And so I didn't notice that I was completely almost hallucinating and bonking and all that over the last dozen miles.
Wow. Mind eraser. Yeah. That's what that, I mean, my first marathon, I didn't realize I was actually running it. Didn't turn my iPod on until after mile 16. I was so pumped up to do it. And there were so many people. I just ran and talked. And at mile 16, I was like, there's no music going on. What's happening? Let me press play. And my first song came out. I was, well, I got 26 miles to go, I guess. And I started running. So 10 miles with music, 16 with nothing, just on the pure adrenaline. And it was great.
And you know what? You probably avoided the wall pretty well simply because of that psychological trick.
Yeah, because I didn't think about it. And it helped me to get over that hump. And I think that's the same thing that happened to you right there when your friend called in distress and you helped your friend. But at the same time, unknowingly, she was helping you to get through it.
Exactly. And so loving, what's the saying? Loving somebody else gives you strength.
Right. Definitely.
So having that bigger thing to serve allows people to be able to do great things, like the veterans on this call, like the parent who has to, reach into the reserves to do something for their children. And, so being a special needs parent has helped me in a lot of ways in terms of building the business, running the ultra marathons, writing the book, doing all these sort of things. And so this is one of the things that I encourage parents is have your kids do hard things, because it teaches them the ability to overcome. It teaches them resilience. It teaches them to develop these reserves that they can tap into down the road. And that's one of the, I'll get on my soapbox for a moment, and that, too many people who have never worn a uniform or served in some capacity don't understand the importance of having something more important. It's like the old saying that The name on the front of the jersey is more important than the name on the back. So having a bigger commitment, where it's your faith, where it's your belief in our country, where it's your commitment to your family, will help you do what you need to do. And that can be not just being willing to die for it, but also, as you had mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, basically being willing to live, to reach out and get the help that you need, to stop smoking so that you can walk your daughter down the aisle, to change your diet so that you don't develop diabetes and, you know, get your leg cut off. These are the things that, having that vision, people without a vision will perish, as it says in the Bible, makes you stronger and willing to resist the short-term feel-good temptations or avoidances, and ultimately have a much better life.
Exactly. You know, being a parent of a special needs, it's a son or a daughter, I'm not sure, but
I got my oldest and my youngest son are both special needs.
okay. So that was, I mean, when you found out they were special needs, that was a challenge you had to take on head on at that point, and try not to dismiss it and be there for them, while also pushing them to do things on their own without extra help. So how did you, I guess, tackle that as they were younger and you were just learning at the time?
Yeah, and so there is a absolutely huge learning curve when you find out that, you know, your kid's bipolar or your kid has autism and ADHD. So you become a sponge a lot of ways. So a lot of my understanding of psychology comes from the deep dives that I did starting about 7 years ago, when these situations just came up, and one right after the other too. So it was, you know, getting hit with the left and the right hook. And so you get this learning curve, so you have to start absorbing things, and you also have to come to an understanding that your world is going to be very different now, because I had to shift my work schedule and attention so that I could be there for the kids more often, as was needed. I had to, I mean, my one son was thrown out of 3 daycares in 6 months.
Wow.
Because he couldn't control himself, as we were starting to figure out medicine and communication, things like this. And you develop their IEP, their individual education plan, and you realize that it's going to be 5 years minimum of getting my kid to the point where they can be in a regular classroom, where they can be normal as they can be. And that was, as I said, 7 years ago. And my youngest is doing very well, but he still requires special attention and medication and oversight in a lot of ways. And so it's coming to the point where, and he's not nearly as bad as some of my other friends who have kids with needs, that it could be your entire life that you are now in a somewhat caregiver mode. And so it changes how you look at things in a lot of ways.
And I think that goes back to the things that are bigger than you sentence just said earlier. Sometimes things are a lot bigger than you, and you have to slow down a little bit to pump them brakes and learn, like you had to on the fly, to not just be a dad, but a dad, and learn how to take care of your sons who needed extra help at that point, not just
exactly. And then you also, because of that, you start making, I don't want to say sacrifices, but you learn to be much more stringent with time requests. No, I'm not going to do that volunteer work, you know, because other people can do that. They can't come on in and take care of my kid. No, I'm not going to take on this project. You know what? The dishes, they can wait until tonight after the kids go to bed, because, you know, I'm going to spend that time with the youngest. So you learn to start having different boundaries in some ways. And you learn how to effectively utilize your time better. So, like, you know, it's only recently in the past year and a half that I started ultra running. because I didn't have the time. I went from, 2.5 hours a day of martial arts before my youngest was born to 20 minutes a day.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And that produces all sorts of changes. And it also produces changes in your dynamic with your significant other that you need to be aware of and be ready to work on.
Right. And so going from about 2.5 hours of Taekwondo a day, getting to get some of your daily frustrations out, as well as exercise for 2.5 hours,
Yep.
along with whoever else you were working out with at the time, down to, you said 20 minutes. That's a big difference in training and big difference in losing your passion. That's something you were passionate about. You were doing it a long time.
Yeah. I mean, I was, competing for an Olympic spot before I had kids.
Wow.
And that, got put on the back burner.
But you wouldn't change that though. So it's you had had a chance. Now you're an ultra marathoner, and they're your support team now. Hopefully they throw water at you.
Actually, yeah, when I did my first ultra, I brought my youngest out, and he ran a couple of blocks with me because he was not, good runner and all that. But my middle one then ran a 5K with me, and that was about noon. And he was so inspired that he went out and ran the rest of a marathon that day on his own.
Wow.
So, that was a big inspiration. And 2 days ago, my youngest actually ran his first 5K.
Nice.
So the example that we set in some ways can, without necessarily saying anything, the younger generation can pick up from. And so that made me exceedingly proud.
Definitely. Our actions can mentor someone without saying a word to them. They can just see what you're doing and say, that's pretty cool. I want to do that too. And like your son running those miles on his own, even after he was done doing that 5K, that's outstanding.
Yep. And that's one of the things, one of the reasons why I'm a Cub Scout and Boy Scout leader is because a lot of these kids don't necessarily have a good role model or, multiple good role models. And so this is one way to give on back and to help them out. And my Cub Scout pack, I'd say actually about a third of them are special needs. And so one of the things that I do is I take the special needs parents to the side and talk about their kids and what's going on with them. And I give them hints based on things that I picked up through my experience and being on the board of the Autism Society and access to resources and things like that. So there is a tremendous benefit to them. And it's just another example that I picked up from my parents, really, on serving others. And you'll never have to worry about yourself.
Exactly. That's a great way to do things. I had a daughter, so she didn't want to be a Girl Scout, not do any of that stuff, but she did want to pick up a sport I never played before, which was soccer. It's New Jersey. We didn't play soccer much. We played football, baseball, basketball, and repeat. Football, baseball, basketball, repeat. And now I have a daughter, she wants to play soccer. I was like, okay, I'll figure this out, I guess. And it took me a long time to figure it out, but I became her coach, and we went to Korea. She won the Peninsula Championship there, and that was a highlight for soccer for us. And my wife missed it because she had to work that day, but I was able to call her and say, hey, your daughter scored. Hey, your daughter scored. Hey, your daughter scored. And rub it in that she missed it. But it's a great show to see it happen.
But also, you were there to support. You were there because, soccer is not one of those things where you show up once and you drop the kid off. I mean, you got to be at the field and, it's not a short cycle thing. And having kids do something difficult like soccer, like any sport, they're learning to push themselves. They're learning teamwork. They're learning rules of the game. They're learning to lose properly and also to hate losing so that they work harder to win. And so we need more competitive sports in this country for kids to learn these rules and these challenges that translate into life. I mean, life is the ultimate game. And so playing more games early is going to better prepare them for down the road.
Definitely teach them that sometimes you do lose, and you're not always going to be given a trophy every day. You're going to have to get that. You're going to fall down, but you got to get back up every day. And that's something I think.
And yeah, you don't get trophies. I mean, my kid got a trophy for like soccer. And he's like, why'd I get a trophy? I'm like, because they give them to everybody. He's like, that sucks. Only winners deserve trophies. I'm like, you are my kid.
They're never going to want you back here, but that's great. That's awesome, though. And in the intro, I said you're a Kaizen expert. What is that?
So Kaizen is the Japanese idea of continuous improvement. And we really first started hearing about Kaizen in the 1970s with Toyota coming on in with their cars. And their cars were horrible back then. But every single person on the assembly line was empowered to stop the line, to make improvements and all that. And so they got better and better and better in these very short cycles and produced a level of quality that Detroit was unable to do at that point because of the structure. And they kept getting better and better. So my theory is that we can apply this concept of continuous improvement to ourselves. And we can apply this in multiple ways. I'm a big fan of James Clear's book, Atomic Habits. And the big thing on that is habit stacking, of just doing little things differently that produce great results. I mean, going back to the ultra running, most people don't just go out and run an ultra marathon like David Goggins because he's a freak. Most people get off the couch and they go around the block a little bit. Then they go for a couple miles. Then they do a 5K maybe. Then they schedule a 10K a couple of weeks or months out, and they extend their distance, and they're changing their eating habits and their sleep patterns, and it compounds. And over a year or two, you can see a tremendous difference in them, especially if they start doing longer distances, half marathons, marathons, going beyond. You can see this in martial arts. Every single new martial artist sucks. It's just the way it is, okay? But then you start practicing and you learn techniques and you practice them over and over and over again. One example is the first technique I learned in Taekwondo was a horse stance center punch. And I still do that punch 100 plus times per day, each hand. I have done that punch over 10 million times in my life. I don't have to think about it. I just do it. And every single morning, part of my morning routine is I still get up and I do that punch at least 100 times with each hand.
Wow.
Okay, so it doesn't matter if it's martial arts, learning an instrument, learning a language, practicing a new sport, learning art. We can continuously improve with focused practice. And it is that practice, focused practice over time that produces excellence. And we can do this in multiple different areas. Like I said earlier, our relationships, our nutrition, our educational approach, our physical health, our mental health. So it is taking the time to invest in improving ourselves that you get the best dividends. And so if you do this, you can go and get that degree. You can go and lose that weight. You're not going to lose 100 pounds overnight, but if you make the continuous effort, you can get back into that healthy position. And oh, by the way, then the diabetes probably goes away.
Yeah.
Okay. And, you feel better and, you lower the stress on your body. So you have less, negative production of cholesterol. Your heart's going to be in better shape. You're going to be happier. Your brain's going to work better. You're going to live longer. You're going to be more productive at work. You're probably going to be a better person to be around. So these different things, excellence is a cross-disciplinary concept in that having excellence in one or two areas will carry over into other areas of your life. And it is much more holistic in the end.
Definitely. And you said that Toyota Auto Works in the 70s, it made me think of the movie Gung Ho in the early 80s.
That is exactly it.
And how they came here to show us their way. And that's basically what they were doing, trying to teach them to improve their processes. And now if you look at Toyota now, leading the way in trucks against the behemoths of Toyota, against Ford, Toyota against Chevy. And they're right there with them. And it's because they continuously improved over time to stay with the big guys, and who are now they're the big guys trying to stay with them.
Exactly. So another example of that is Dave Grohl from Nirvana and the Foo Fighters said that, you know what? Everybody sucks. Okay? You're going to get in a band with your buddies and you're going to suck. And then you're going to keep practicing and you're going to suck less. And then you're going to play a couple of gigs and they're going to suck, but then they suck less. And you keep it up, and over time you're pretty good. And you keep it up, and eventually you're freaking Nirvana.
Right. Go from being a drummer in Nirvana to the lead singer of Foo Fighters. So,
exactly. And I wonder what his next gig's going to be now.
Host of something, probably. That's your usual thing, or he'll be on The Voice or something next, and that'll be his culmination affair. So, Joe, how does someone get in contact with you to have you either speak to them or teach them how to be excellent?
So the best way is to go to my website. You can find the book on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles and all that sort of stuff. You can also get it at my website, though, which is everyday-excellence.com. That's everyday-excellence.com. And the reason why I say go to the website is because 6 days a week I put up a microblog, so additional stuff. All the podcasts live there. It's going to have a link to the YouTube channel. So there's all sorts of additional resources, an entire environment for people to be able to increase their excellence. Plus, they can end up reaching out and engaging.
Awesome. And if you can give 3 tips to a young man or young woman coming up and starting a business, say now an entrepreneur, 3 tips for them to make that an excellent venture, what would that be?
1, figure out the one thing that you need to do every single day, and then do it. I don't know if it's picking up the phone 50 times or sending 100 emails or knocking on 20 doors or, having 5 billable hours, whatever it is, find out that one thing and do it every single day. No goose eggs. 2, continuously invest in yourself, because I don't care if you're selling widgets or coaching services or what have you. The better you make yourself, the better you're going to be at your job. And 3, remember that in any decision that you make, whether it's with your work, with your relationships, with your health, you can basically have 2 outcomes. You can choose what feels good in the moment, what is convenient, what is easy. That's eating the donut. That is, smoking the cigarette. That is hitting the bottle. That is having the affair. But, that is taking the quick way out. Longer range, though, that leads to worse outcomes. That leads to diabetes. That leads to divorce. That leads to, cancer. The decision that feels good in the moment generally is going to take you to the path to hell. It's going to lead you to worse outcomes. Or you can do what sucks in the moment, what is harder. There's activation energy around it, which is, cracking open the book instead of playing video games. It is eating the healthy meal instead of the cheeseburger, even though I love cheeseburgers. It is not having the smoking. It is having the difficult discussion with your significant other or your kid that then prevents bad stuff from occurring. If you do the difficult, the hard thing up front, life's going to be a lot easier. So choose to do the hard things because it will make you and the environment around you better long range.
Outstanding. Thanks, Joe. Thanks for those tips. Listeners, heed those tips, and you'll have your better business and more of excellent approach to your life. Like Joe has showed you through this. You take care of the bad things, get them out of your way, and your day will be much better, more productive, and stack those victories. Joe, thanks again for taking some of your time to hang out with us here on the Misfit Nation. Again, I'll say let's go Mets as we start to sign off here. But again, thanks for coming on and joining us.
Rich, it has been my pleasure. Thank you for allowing me to talk to our listeners. Be excellent and grow today.
Awesome. Thank you.